Former President of United States of America, George Bush, declared what became known as the War on Terror on Iraq and Afghanistan, stating that, I quote, "It will not end until every terrorist group of global reach has been found, stopped, and defeated." What followed was a massive disinformation campaign to justify the 2003 invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan under the pretext of locating and destroying weapons of mass destruction. Decades later, no such weapons were ever found. This invasion was about minerals and oil reserves, not weapons of mass destruction. Iraq and Afghanistan have never recovered. Cuba, Libya, Venezuela, and Chile are examples of nations that have suffered from US interventions because of their socialist policies, justified by false intelligence to advance imperialism. Cuba has endured decades of sanctions for nationalization of strategic sectors of the economy, supporting African liberation and socialism, while Libya was destroyed because Gaddafi rejected US dominance. We raise these historical facts because history must guide us in everything we do. When Donald Trump declares that, I open quote, "bad things are happening in South Africa," without evidence, we must not assume that the USA is misinformed. Instead, we must question the real intention behind such statement. After Trump's remarks, the US froze foreign aid globally under the pretext of assessing alignment with the policy outlook. For South Africa, this meant PEPFAR funding of HIV/AIDS response was under threat. On 26 February 2025, the freeze became permanent, terminating funding indefinitely. The US aggression towards South Africa is nothing more than Israel's revenge for our moral stance in support of Palestine. Meanwhile, some of us have been labeled international criminals, a designation used before the West assassinates those who opposed its agenda. Before invading the nations, the US always fabricates human rights violation to justify intervention. Today, same tactics are being used against South Africa. The growing calls by right-wing groups for foreign funding to establish independent states and to be armed by foreign interest must be recognized as part of a broader plan. This is the early stage of economic isolation, leading ultimately to military intervention. Next, AGOA will be terminated, escalating tensions between USA and South Africa. Our government must dismiss opportunistic African and racist groups exploiting US imperialism to fund their racist fantasies of an independent state. That will never happen. We will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refuge in America. Deputy Speaker, Trump and the USA are not demonstrating strength. The USA is merely displaying an advanced stage of capitalism, which is imperialism. Trump engages in transactional and manipulative relationships with the world like it is his backyard. The hostility towards South Africa does not come from fraudulent boers spreading disinformation, but from America's imperialist agenda. The USA, home of the world's most sophisticated intelligence agencies, agencies that fabricate evidence to justify of Afghanistan and Iraq, and orchestrated the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi, Patrice Lumumba, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X, cannot now claim to be victims of disinformation from a minor racist group based in Orania. He has openly embraced the golden age of imperialism, extending its power through threats and the prevention and termination of foreign aid. In response, our government foolishly seeks to explain our policies to a maniacal president, as if the USA were a victim of misinformation. The USA knows exactly what it's doing and why it is doing it. At a Goldman Sachs event of the 27th of February 2025, South Africa President Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa stated, I quote, "Trump got the wrong end of the stick of the country's land policies." I completely reject this notion. The USA, home of Elon Musk's platform, X platform, Jeff Bezos' Amazon, Facebook, Google, Tesla, Starlink, and Silicon Valley, the global hub of data collection, cannot claim to be misinformed. They are the greatest perpetrators of disinformation. The USA is the greatest perpetrator of disinformation. It is now using its own falsehood as justification to attack South Africa. This government refused to acknowledge the real issues. We are being punished for supporting Palestine against apartheid Israel, nothing else. The USA does not believe there is a white genocide or land grabs in South Africa. These lies are useful tools to justify economic aggression and seek to weaken our moral authority to condemn Israel's genocide. Foreign aid has always been a tool for Western imperialism and control. It must end with South Africa. We must expand our trade and strengthen relationship with China, India, Russia, Brazil, and Singapore while emphasizing African unity. The USA is on a full mission to extort the world into submission, and as a result will become increasingly isolated. Our sovereignty, security, and economic prosperity on rejecting the American Golden Age, a project of imperialism. The world must move forward without the USA if true progress is to be achieved. We are not the puppets of the USA. We will never be bullied by Donald Trump and his friends. South Africa remains an independent state, which is not handled by the USA. The majority of South Africans love their whites. They worship them everywhere they go. Why will they kill them? They always seek white validation and affirmation of whiteness. It is a black talent. It is a black talent. It is not a black talent until white people say so. If it is a black skill or innovation, it is not until white say so. If it is black quality product, it will have to pass many hands before they endorse this product. Any political party without white endorsement will never receive any electoral support and financial support until white establishment says so. Like the Cuban people will never give up on our freedom against American imperialism. We must unashamedly continue to stand with Palestine and Russia. We are product of international solidarity. We are Palestinians and they are Africans. We will die shoulder by shoulder with Palestinian people. We will be buried next to their graves because no amount of American bullying and financial dictatorship will separate us. Not even death will succeed. From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. We are not product of land theft or genocide. We are not grabbing any land, but claiming what rightfully belongs to us. We are not engaged in what genocide. Instead, we are coexisting with our white murderers. Whatever it takes, this land shall be expropriated and will be returned to its rightful owners. Victory is certain. Hasta la victoria siempre.
I now invite the Honourable the Minister of Health. The Minister of Health. Minister of Health.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Member of the House, the initiator of the motion, Honorable Julius Selomalema. Honorable Deputy Speaker, today's debate is about the decision of the US government to halt aid to South Africa and the response thereto. I assume, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that most of the response are expected from me, being the Minister who is in charge of health at this present moment, the hardest hit sector in Trump's announcement. I'm going to try my best to take you through this whole saga so that you understand it because I need to share information with you. Honorable Deputy Speaker, to put this debate into perspective, it will be important to outline to this House the temporal sequence of events. As we all know, President Donald Trump resumed office on the 20th of January 2025 and immediately signed far-reaching executive orders to stop PEPFAR funding to the whole world. PEPFAR, or the President's Emergency Program for AIDS Relief, was initiated by President George Bush Jr. in 2003 and has enjoyed broad bipartisan support in the US. That means it was supported by both the Republicans and the Democrats alike. Now, what is the PEPFAR's involvement in our country? South Africa has an estimated 7.8 million people who are infected with HIV. Out of the 7.8 million, a total of 5.5 million are on antiretroviral treatment. Out of the 52 districts in our country, PEPFAR selected 27 high-burden districts to operate there, and these districts are found in only 8 provinces. There is no high-burden district in the whole of Northern Cape Province. Of the 27 districts, 7 are in KZN, 5 in Eastern Cape, 4 in Gauteng, including all their 3 metros, 3 each in Northwest and Mpumalanga, 2 each in Limpopo and the Free State, and 1 in the Western Cape, which unfortunately is the metro itself that represents close to 60% of the population of Western Cape. These 27 districts have 271,606 staff working on HIV, AIDS, and TB and STIs. Please note that these diseases are still happening in all the 52 districts. Only that PEPFAR is not involved in 25 of our districts. Of the 271,606 staff members, 256,452 are paid for from our own fiscals. This leaves us with 15,154 people in those districts who are paid for by PEPFAR, and these are the persons of concern in this saga. PEPFAR funds these people through a myriad of NGOs and academics as well as health institutions. All in all, there are 150 NGOs who depend on PEPFAR. 39 of them are principal implementing agent, and the remaining are subcontracted to the 39. ARV acquisition. I want to make it clear to the House that our own government buys ARVs to the tune of 90% of all the needed ARVs. We buy them. The remaining 10% is paid for by Global Fund, which was also established 2 decades ago to fight HIV, AIDS, and malaria in the whole world. And coincidentally, our own Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Pasha, is a member of the International Board of this Global Fund. He was appointed last year. So PEPFAR funds only salaries and operational costs. ARVs are bought by us and the Global Fund. Where are we in the battle against HIV? I'm sure you are well versed with the concept of 95-95-95, which was developed by UNAIDS, which said if in any country 95% of the people know their HIV status, if those who test positive, 95% of them are put on ARVs, and if 95% of all those who are on ARVs are virally suppressed, it means you can no longer detect HIV/AIDS in their blood. When you reach that status, you are said to have eliminated HIV/AIDS as a public health threat. Not that we have eradicated it, but we have eliminated it. And we all want to be there. Now, where are we in this 95 in South Africa? We are at 96, 79, and 94. It means the first 95 we have exited it. Our problem is on the middle 95. We are still at 79, meaning there are still people who are HIV positive who are not on ARVs. On the 25th of February, at Lillian Goy Health Center and Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, we launched a huge program to find an additional 1.1 million people who must be put on ARVs, and we must find that number by the end of November this year. This is the last mile of the journey in the fight against HIV and AIDS. We dare not falter. Come Trump or high waters, we should not falter. I don't want South Africans rather to undermine the progress we've made in the fight against this scourge. And I will tell you that in the last 15 years, since we launched this world's biggest counseling, testing and treatment campaign, this is what we have achieved. We have reduced death by HIV by 51%. And in the instance, we raised life expectancy from 53 years in 2010 to 63 years in 2020. In a decade, we raised life expectancy of South Africans by 10 years. This is unprecedented, prompting one of our own global scientist, Professor Salim Karim, to say this is only equivalent to abolition of slavery. We reduced mother-to-child transmission from 0.86 to 0.39 between 2019 and 2024. Our maternal mortality, which is a global indicator of progress, was 249 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births by 2010. We have reduced it to 86 by 2020. This is tremendous achievement, but COVID-19 came to trouble us, and we went down up to 120. We are now back in 2024 to 109. Now you can see this is a massive achievement. In 2010, a total of 25,858 babies were born HIV positive. This is called mother-to-child transmission. By 2020, we had dramatically reduced it to 7,640. That's a whooping 70% reduction in mother-to-child transmission. In 2015, we reduced TB by 56%, the instance of TB. Now, this achievement, honorable members, did not roll in on wheels of inevitability. We had to work hard on them. And I want to beg you that don't let it slip back. Don't allow South Africa to go back where it was. And I believe this debate, Honorable Malema, is to try and find a way to achieve that. We have redeployed staff in our provinces to areas of high burden. We have initiated task shifting. We encourage as many patients as possible to take their drugs for 3 months rather than 1 month. We even want to increase it to 6 months. In the meantime, we've met many funders: the Child Clinton Health Access Initiative, Elmer Foundation, Gates Foundation, Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office of the UK, our own First Rand, the trustees of Solidarity Fund, not the solidarity that ran to Trump, but the Solidarity Fund established during COVID. I want to emphasize to you that there is no government or funder in the world that has put money aside waiting for Trump to explode. That's why we meet them, but none of them will say, I give you this much. Now, I believe then Trump doesn't owe us any cent. Trump doesn't owe South Africa any cent whatsoever. And for that reason, we need to stand on our own. We must not waste this crisis. For that reason, Honorable Malema, I am challenging this House. Can we call a debate, to come and debate in this House why all of us here, including all well-to-do South Africans who are on medical aid, why are we still getting heavy subsidies to stay on private medical aids? Is it fair? Should we be doing that during this difficult moment? In my language, ba re bana ba motho ba ngathogana tlhogwana ya tšie. The literal translation means during tough times, children of the same mother can survive by sharing a head of a locust. So, Akpare Malema, allow me to put it in Afrikaans to you. I know you and me don't know anything about Afrikaans, but I learned a little bit of it in Stutolwane. Mag ons voortgaan.
Honourable Minister.
Mag ons voortgaan. En hierdie self al dinge so sleg is. Dit moet nie 'n kwessie van wie die kragtig is nie. Dit moet 'n kwessie van as ons saam met die armes or praat ons net. Honourable Speaker, I hope that we did not call this session just to bash Trump. It won't help, believe you me. We are on our own, and for that reason, I am concluding by saying, please, let's call a session. Should me and you and all the well-to-do South Africans paid for by the state, should we keep on dragging heavy subsidies to stay on private medical aid? Or should we do something about it? This calls for a debate. I hope Action South Africa among the parties will support this call.
Minister, your time has
because
expired.
one of their members, Dr. Letlape, as the president of the
Honourable
Professions
Minister,
Council,
your time has
used
expired.
to support this call. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. The next speaker is the Honourable Douglas.
Greetings to everybody. I greet you all in the name of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And Honourable Speaker, Honourable Members of Parliament, the people of South Africa and the international community. The United States administration's recent decision to suspend aid to South Africa, citing our sovereign stance on land reform and our legal challenge taking Israel to the ICJ where they were found guilty of genocide, is not just an economic decision. It is an act of political and economic coercion that threatens the lives and livelihoods of millions of South Africans and people around the world. Let us be clear, this is economic warfare and unethical medical blackmail, an attempt to strong-arm us into submission because we dare to stand for justice, for land reform, and for restoring the dignity of the oppressed. This is not about aid, it is about power, control by a minority of racist landowners and beneficiaries of colonialism and apartheid over our land and resources, and whether South Africa has the right to determine its own future without external influence. Yet, despite this provocation, let me make one thing abundantly clear. South Africa and the Umkhonto we party and our party president Jacob Zuma are not America's enemy. Under President Zuma's presidency, America and South Africa enjoyed good, stable trade and diplomatic relations. We seek trade, partnership and mutual prosperity. We are not anti-West, we are not anti-white, nor do we have hostility towards Europe, China, Russia, the Middle East or Latin America, because this country and MK is non-aligned. And we will stay non-aligned and we will put the interests of South Africans first. We are a nation of Ubuntu, a people who believe in peace, in unity and justice. But our respect must be reciprocated. True partnership is built on equality, not threats. The US has historically been one of South Africa's key partners in health and development, sure, particularly through the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief and US aid programs. But now, with the stroke of a pen, millions of lives have been put at risk. Consider the consequences of this decision. Over 7 million South Africans live with HIV/AIDS, and PEPFAR has provided life-saving treatment to over 5.5 million, many of whom now face an uncertain future. Rural hospitals, clinics, and community healthcare programs rely on American assistance for vital resources like antiretroviral drugs and maternal healthcare services. Thousands of healthcare jobs, nurses, social workers, and outreach teams face immediate termination, collapsing entire health infrastructures. But this cannot be blamed on America. This must be blamed completely on the shoulders of South Africa. South Africa should not have to hire people and use American funding to pay our healthcare workers. We must take the land back and must take the resources back and utilize it to free our people and get more people to help our people. Who will suffer the most? Not politicians, not corporations, but the poorest of the poor, the sick, the landless, the voiceless, the very people South Africa is trying to uplift through its land reform agenda. Let us speak truth to power. This crisis is not happening in isolation. It is the direct result of treasonous elements within our borders, like AfriForum and Solidarity, and people like Rob Hersov, who are all spoiled, rich Nepo babies and beneficiaries of apartheid and colonialism, who have actively lobbied successfully to harm their own country, leading to the loss of life of South African citizens. This will not be tolerated, and it cannot go unpunished. These organizations and individuals lie to the West, portraying land reform as white genocide to the US Congress, pushing a false narrative to justify America's economic aggression. This is an act of treason. But let's deal in facts, not propaganda. White South Africans own 72% of all private farmland, despite only being 7% of the population. 87% of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is still controlled by the same corporate elites who thrived under apartheid and benefited from colonialism and land grabs without compensation to the indigenous people. More than 60% of South Africa's natural resources, mines, and industries remain under the control of the same colonial beneficiaries who now claim to be victims, and the rest are shared with political connected Nepo beneficiaries, not the average South African everyday people. And now these very racist Afrikaner and British descendants living amongst us as South Africans who have stolen our land, stolen our future, stolen our wealth, and put us in labor camps called townships and kept us there while they go around the world bad-mouthing us. They must be called to book. This is not just hypocrisy, it's a betrayal of the lived reality of all South Africans regardless of race. AfriForum and Solidarity represent a small, privileged, racist elite who are willing to see South Africans suffer and the country economy run into the ground just to maintain their grip on stolen land and economic power, and have maintained racial privileges by refusing to return land and under apartheid and under colonialism. Despite a peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy in 1994, which was meant to be the start of the land reform process, it was never ever done. Here in South Africa, we have yet to do land reform. These white racist apartheid people beneficiaries need to understand where we come from as South Africans. The irony is the vast majority who are hurt by President Trump's actions are the British and the Dutch who have come and settled here amongst us. They are the ones who own the businesses. They are the ones who do most of the trading and the exporting. They are the ones that take the raw minerals and send it out overseas. We are going to put a stop to that, and we're going to make sure our resources are used for our people. Thank you. South Africa is America's largest trading partner in Africa, with over 600 American companies operating in our economy. AGOA exports to the US generate billions of rands annually, but let's be honest, who benefits the most? The same corporate monopolies that have locked out black-owned and indigenous businesses from real economic participation. The same 7% elite that still dominates South African industries and financial markets. If America wants a future trade relationship with us as South Africa, it must be built on economic justice, fair investment, and empowerment of black and indigenous businesses, not just another tool to entrench white monopoly capital control. If AGOA is used as a weapon
Honourable
against us...
Douglas, could you please take your seat?
Thank you.
Honourable Member, please indicate which point you are rising on.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I'm rising on a point of privilege. Can the Speaker take a question?
Honourable Douglas, are you prepared to take a question? He is not prepared to take a question. Honourable Douglas, please proceed.
Sit down. Relax.
Let me continue. If AGOA is used as a weapon against us, then South Africa has other options. We have BRICS, a growing economic powers that does not operate through threats and intimidation. We have trade partners in China, Russia, India, the Middle East, and Africa, and the broader global South who understand what true economic partnership means. But we want to partner with America. There are many American brands in South Africa that we love. And we want you to be partnering with us, but not on your terms, on our terms as Africans, as our terms as Africans and as South Africans. We have our own resources, our own industries, and our own future to build without dependence on any single foreign power. South Africa is the first African nation to assume the G20 presidency 2024 to 25, a critical moment in history. And next year, we will hand the presidency over to the United States. Yet, instead of engaging with us in good faith, the US has chosen economic coercion over cooperation. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has snubbed the G20 foreign ministers meeting in Johannesburg, opposing South Africa's focus on diversity, equity, and land reform. The US continues to undermine multilateral cooperation, creating a vacuum that other countries will inevitably fill. Let us be clear, if America isolates itself from us as South Africa and from the broader global South, it will lose its strategic foothold in Africa. As Umkhonto we sees, we stand with the global South. We demand fair trade agreements that uplift all people, not just the privileged elite. We demand climate reparations from the biggest polluters like the USA and China and others who have caused the most environmental destruction, but now put that on us as South Africans. We demand debt relief for developing nations, many of whom suffer under the weight of economic policies crafted by Western financial institutions. Despite this crisis, MK stands committed to diplomatic engagement with America. We call on the United States to immediately restore PEPFAR or to work on a phase-out process. We call for urgent negotiations on AGOA that will serve all South Africans, not just corporate elites here. We call on all America to respect South Africa's sovereignty on land reform, foreign policy, and economic self-determination. If the United States wants a strong economic and diplomatic relationship with South Africa, it must be built on respect, fairness, and genuine partnership, not threats, blackmail, or economic warfare. Mr. Chair, I think we're in that stage where people don't
Honourable
understand.
Douglas, just a minute. My apologies for interrupting you, but honourable members, please keep the volume down, and also do not. I'm talking to all sides, but I am reacting to the fact that a member. Honourable member, please switch off your microphone. I am busy with the member at the back. Please do not go to the point where you shout "shut up" to people. It is not parliamentary, so please proceed, Honourable Douglas.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair.
Yes, Honourable Member. What point are you rising on?
On rule number 91, you cannot allow the other side to be shouting at our speaker and you are not controlling them. Please, call them to order.
Honourable Member.
Which other side?
Honourable Minister, I have not recognised you. Honourable members, please keep the volume down so that we can listen to the speaker. And Honourable Douglas, could you please proceed with your speech?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. The first thing that I want to say is that this is about the land. And the people that have run there and pretending to be victims are actually the perpetrators. They're the ones that killed our people. They're the ones that killed the Khoi and the San people and African indigenous people. They're the ones that are guilty of ethnic cleansing here in South Africa. And they're running away claiming to be the victims. They have the land, they have the power, they have the money, they have the security, but they're claiming to be the victims. No, that is nonsense. You guys are the perpetrators. You are the oppressors here. And you are going to give us justice, and you're going to give us our land back. And you're going to make sure that we see what you do with that land. That land is going to come back to us whether you like it or not, because it's Khoi San land, it's African indigenous land. The land must come back under the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, Mr. Chair. And I think that we are in a situation now that we are because people are not speaking the truth. We see you South Africans, we hear you South Africans, we hear the poor, we hear the people that have lost their land. It's time for justice in South Africa, it's time for righteousness in South Africa. Hulle maak hulle laat, hulle gaan nooit ons land weer kry nie. Die land gaan terugkom na die Khoi en die San mense, na die every African person is entitled to share the land and to share the resources of this land.
Honourable Douglas, your time has expired. The next speaker is the Honourable Leroux.
Honourable Deputy Speaker and Honourable Members.
Honourable Leroux, there is a point of order. Please take your seat. Honourable Member, please indicate which rule you are rising on.
Rising in terms of Rule 65, which says members should not converse aloud. I did not want to stand while the Speaker was on the podium because I did not want to disturb him. But we're noting, Chair, that each time our speakers go to the podium, they get howled by these howlers of the ANC. and you fail to protect them.
We can't
You are
hear
not
you.
taking
We
that
can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Honourable,
We don't hear you.
Honourable Minister, I have not recognised. There is now a point on the floor. I will now first deal with that matter. Honourable members, I have requested both sides to turn down the volume, and it goes for all the sides and all the members. So it is not only members of the ANC, it is also your members. It is all over. So I make an appeal to all of you, and I've now ruled on that matter. We will now proceed. Honourable Skosana. Is it Honourable Skosana? I can't see that. Please proceed.
Yeah, no, it's me, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I'm rising in terms of Rule 84. The Honourable Member say he's calling us howlers. He's calling the Honourable Members of this House howlers. That is unparliamentary, Deputy Speaker. Secondly, Deputy Speaker, secondly, a point of order must be raised immediately when the transgression is made in the House. A point of order can't be raised later. Thanks, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I unfortunately...
Don't howl, man. Keep quiet.
Honourable Minister, this is now the last time that I'm warning you not to switch on your microphone without being recognised. Honourable Members, Honourable Members, I am trying to listen to what the Honourable Skosana said, but I can't hear him because of the noise from this side. So please also work together so that we can hear one another. And please switch off your microphone, Honourable Member. Switch off your microphone. And I do request the Honourable Chief Whip of the MK to also please rise on the points of order if it is necessary. Thank you very much. We will now proceed. Honourable Leroux.
Honourable Deputy Speaker and honourable members, let me paint you a picture. It is the year 2000 and I am a newly minted intern working at Victoria Hospital here in Cape Town. I am on call and I admit a young 20-year-old woman who is extremely short of breath with an unusual x-ray that shows the ground glass appearance of pneumocystis pneumonia, and my heart sinks. I draw blood for HIV, but I already know what the result is going to be. Sure enough, at the end of my 30-hour shift, when I check the result, it is positive. And with a heavy heart and bleary eyes, I walk up to the ward to inform her of the diagnosis. And as I tell her that she's HIV positive, I see the fear in her eyes and the hope drain out of her body. I know that there's nothing I can do for her. But I still am shocked the next morning when I arrive in the ward and find that she has passed during the night. Experiences like these became commonplace for doctors and nurses in the late 1990s and the early 2000s in South Africa as the HIV epidemic broke on our shores and filled hospital wards with thousands of desperately ill children, men and women in the prime of their lives. The stigma and fear was palpable in communities, misinformation was rife, and healthcare workers desperate and burnt out. As we were trying to cope with this tsunami...
Honourable Leroux, please take your seat. Honourable Magny, what point are you rising on?
Just to check if the Speaker will take a question on who brought AIDS here.
Honourable Leroux, would you take a question? No, he will not take a question. Thank you very much. Could I also ask the members to my right, please to converse. Honourable Deputy Minister of Basic Education, I really request you not to disrupt the speaker. Thank you very much. Honourable Leroux, please proceed.
As we were trying to cope with tsunami, we were hearing about breakthroughs in HIV treatment with a very expensive regimen combining 3 drugs called HART, or highly active antiretroviral therapy, showing remarkable results in America and Europe. But the idea that we might have HART available for patients in the government in South Africa seemed but a distant dream. Then, in 2003, President George Bush signed the US President's Emergency Plan for Aid Relief, known as PEPFAR, and everything started changing for the better. South Africa launched its ARV program with PEPFAR support in 2004, and although the program was significantly constrained until the interventions of Ministers Hogan and Motsoaledi from 2008 onwards, the psychological impact for people living with HIV and for healthcare workers was dramatic, with hope replacing the despair that we all felt. In the past 21 years, nearly $110 billion has been spent through PEPFAR in more than 60 countries, with $8 billion or 145 billion rands being spent in South Africa alone. Worldwide, an estimated 25 million lives were saved, and mother-to-child transmission of HIV was nearly completely wiped out, preventing 7.8 million infections in small babies. In South Africa, we need to recognize and acknowledge, as South Africans, we need to recognize and acknowledge the extraordinary generosity of the American people to us and to the rest of Africa through PEPFAR. The aid delivered has been extremely well spent through government programs and efficient NGOs. PEPFAR is arguably the most effective foreign aid program ever, perhaps only matched by the Marshall Plan that helped rebuild Europe after the Second World War. As is summarized on the Desmond Tutu Health Foundation website, PEPFAR, implemented in 2003, was a brilliant, generous and greatly valued intervention that changed the potential course of history forever. Under PEPFAR, we have seen a miraculous change to the narrative surrounding the AIDS response in Africa. Sadly, today, I am for all intents and purposes, delivering a eulogy for PEPFAR. The dismantling of US aid and sudden cessation of PEPFAR funding by the current US administration has been a huge shock and extremely damaging to our healthcare system. The DA would like to express its deep sympathy with patients who have lost access to PEPFAR-funded care, and also with the nearly 15,000 healthcare workers who have lost their jobs. We are also extremely concerned about the impact on other countries in Africa, many who rely on PEPFAR for nearly 90% of their HIV budgets, and for whom the recent decisions by the United States administration will cause even more severe consequences, causing increased mortality, morbidity, and instability. We believe that the abrupt manner in which the funding was stopped was unethical and wasteful, and it has not allowed governments, including our own, to make contingency plans and to allocate budget to cover funding shortfalls. It has, however, taught us as South Africans that in this post-COVID era, we will need to become more self-reliant, and that we desperately need to grow our economy and create jobs to get more revenue into the fiscus to be able to fund life-saving healthcare programs. The DA commends the National Department of Health for the guidance delivered a few weeks ago, instructing health facilities to provide 6 months of treatment to all stable ARV patients and to accommodate and help all patients who previously relied on PEPFAR-funded programs. But recognize that this will be a major challenge without extra staffing and extra funding. We would therefore like to urge the Department of Health to perform an immediate and careful spending review so that wasteful and unnecessary expenditure in the department is identified and it can be shifted towards programs which have previously been funded by PEPFAR. In conclusion, we continue to hope that the new US administration will reconsider recent decisions and that the American people will extend their generosity through PEPFAR for the next year or two so that South Africa and the rest of Africa can mitigate the impact of these funding cuts. Otherwise, medical interns will once again be faced with heartbreaking moments like the one I experienced 25 years ago. I thank you.
The Honourable the Deputy Minister of Transport.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The global political landscape is shifting rapidly, and sovereign nations are making decisions that have far-reaching consequences. The United States, in exercising its own sovereign right, has halted aid funding to South Africa. In equal measure, South Africa must exercise its own sovereignty in responding to this decision in a manner that prioritizes our national interest, protects the most vulnerable, and safeguards our economic and social stability. Beyond that direct health implications, 15,000 healthcare workers are now at risk of losing their jobs at a time when South Africa faces record high unemployment. This is an undesirable development. The strain on the healthcare system will be severe, reducing access to treatment for vulnerable citizens increasing workloads for remaining healthcare workers, and potentially leading to burnout and compromised care quality. In response, the IFP believes in short-term interventions and long-term solutions to mitigate the damage and build resilience. In the short term, for long-term gain, collaboration between the government, private sector, and NGOs will be essential for providing emergency funding, redirecting resources, and offering alternative employment opportunities in the healthcare sector. By doing so, we can soften the immediate impact of the funding cut while working toward long-term sustainability. In the long term, South Africa must move towards self-help and self-reliance and economic independence. Over-reliance on external aid makes us vulnerable to political global shifts, propaganda, and misinformation. The IFP firmly believes that cultivating the capacity to thrive independently is the only sustainable path forward. However, we further recognize that South Africa is not an island. Our economy and geopolitical standing are deeply tied to global trade. The United States remains a key strategic trade partner, and we must approach this situation with diplomacy and pragmatism. The IFP supports engagements on a well-reasoned diplomatic approach, which is necessary to preserve our economic relationship. However, Honorable Deputy Speaker, after all this is said and done, the hard truths here at home must be confronted. The crisis that is occurring is not in isolation. It exposes the deeper systemic failures in the country. The illusion of reconciliation in 1994 allowed injustices to persist without full accountability. The CODESA principle of sufficient consensus enabled oppressors to escape responsibility, while the Rainbow Nation facade only served to delay true economic justice. Today, emboldened elements of the past are once again challenging the progress that we have made. Let us be clear, some of those who benefited from apartheid never stopped working against a truly free South Africa. Their stance remains an anti-democratic South Africa. The irony is that they cry foul when we speak redress and transformation, terming it as racism, with their only recourse being a nostalgic longing to take us back to a racist past of black oppression. The return of the Trump administration has emboldened these forces, allowing them to undermine our democracy and economic stability under the guise of foreign policy decisions. AfriForum and Solidarity have erred in their modus operandi. Their recourse cannot be railing one government over another. Their pursuit for recourse could have found expression in other legitimate international fora. One area where sovereignty and national interest must be exercised is land reform. However, this must be done responsibly. The IFP opposes the Expropriation Act, but not because we reject land reform, but because we reject reckless policy making. Section 25 of the Constitution already allows for land expropriation when necessary, but it must be done with compensation to ensure economic stability. The current Expropriation Act is flawed and risks driving South Africa into further economic hardship. We support transformation, but not destruction. The US decision to halt aid is both currently now for South Africa a challenge and an opportunity. It forces us to rethink our economic policies and stand our own feet. We must at this moment put South Africa first. In conclusion, Honorable Deputy Speaker, it is only the MK party that congratulated Mr. Trump on his re-election. The chickens have come home to roost.
The next speaker is the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture. Order, honourable members. Order.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, you know, I teach my kids. I said to my kids always, most people don't live with reality. I said, if you want to be successful, look at your reality, not perception. America needs South Africa. South Africa needs America. If we don't work together, both of us shall lose, but South Africa shall lose more. America does not have doctors currently that's out of a job. We have medical students that don't have a job. Worse PEPFAR, without PEPFAR, it shall be worse. People are going to die. HIV/AIDS is going to kill our people. I am coming here today. If you hate America, that's fine. If you think this is about Donald Trump, that's even fine. But this is not about Donald Trump. This is about the 230,000 people that will be out of a job. This is about the people that will be dying. I'm not here. I don't care what you feel. So to South Africans, come here with a plan. Don't hi me here. You have medical aid. You have free medical aid. You have free state medical aid. You come here, hi. I'm talking for the people with no medical aid. All the people in this tent have medical aid. And the ones that run to America, I want to warn you, we have a Minister of International Affairs, we have a president. The reason why you're not posting the pictures of your American stay, because you met the janitors, you met the people there at this gate. Show us who you met. So I want to say to South Africa, let's be calm, let's fix our relationship. You talk about BRICS. Russia, rightly so, Russia jumped at the opportunity to restore the relationship with America. India was the first visit that happened, was India. Don't come here. The world is going right. You want to go this way. We need each other. So I want to say to South Africans, you can howl as much as you like. At the moment, we can't even give our doctors a job. In conclusion, because PEPFAR has been removed, there's now 17% of the money is gone. I want to ask the president of this country, can we immediately stop to give illegal foreigners any medical help? They should be banned from all our hospitals. They must go to their countries who has a good relationship with America. And I want to say to the Americans, they can say what? In 2000, when people were dying, George Bush gave money and he assisted. Some of us, we don't forget the persons. We have gratitude. I want to say, not everybody hates America. We don't hate America. And not everybody here is saying America should go to hell. Some of us are saying, stop listening to racists giving you wrong information, but let's get together, let us talk, let President Ramaphosa sit with President Trump in a room, and they worked out the deal. Illegal foreigners must be banned from all our hospitals starting from today. Salute.